In this podcast, I'm going to be talking about the pros and cons of using an army duffel, when you should use an army duffel, when you shouldn't, and why I sometimes use it. So let's get into it. So this right here is a giant army duffel. This thing is 50 inches long. That is one of the pros, also one of the cons. So that being said, I'm going to go into pros first. So pros. First of all, this thing it can be massive. These things are called black holes. Vagabrothers recommends a duffel bag that is literally referred to as the black hole. So basically, duffels can just carry a lot of stuff, which can serve a purpose. Also, for anglers in specific, a large duffel is great if you want to merge both a rod tube and both your rods and your check-in bag all in one and just get it done, versus having to just waste a whole separate check-in item on just a proper rod tube. Here's the way it works. You buy a 50-inch duffel, or you could buy like a 48 or 46, depending on what size rods you're going to be bringing. You grab your 2-piece rods, you grab a piece of PVC pipe, you cut it to the right size, you tape it on both ends, or you can use proper PVC caps, and you basically secure it. You can use like your clothes, or you can use rags on both sides inside the cap to secure your rods, and that should hold it nicely inside your duffel. So you can so if you want to use like 2-piece rods on a trip, this thing is great. That's why I actually bought one of these, because I wanted to bring a 2-piece rod in specific to my worked at a sleepaway camp, and I bought it in lieu of it. So that is the army duffel. That is one of the pros of its size. It can fit anything you want. You could smuggle a person. I mean, don't actually, but you could theoretically smuggle a small person. I put an entire kayak in this thing, and I brought a float tube back. So this thing can fit a lot. So if you need that, if you want to bring that much stuff in just bulk and size, that's where an army duffel shines. The other pro to it, they're cheap. Army surplus store, you can find one. I put a link below for example of what I'm referring to on Amazon, but in Army surplus store, this thing was $40, and that was a larger size. So if you want to get something that's 1 or 2 sizes down, you're looking at like $35, $32, which isn't that expensive for a proper check-in bag. So yeah, not very expensive. They're durable, and on top of that, they're not like a hard suitcase durable, but they're like more like a durable fabric. And then the other pro that goes with that is, because it's a fabric and there's no framework to it, that i.e. like wheels on other duffels out there on the market, or like a hard suitcase, you can basically pinch down this entire thing. So if you have very little space, like I'm in a studio right now, and this thing fits this thing can pack really nicely in a closet. So if you don't have that much storage space, but you want a nice check-in bag, this is not a bad option. Now let's go over the cons. So I covered a couple of the pros with having an army duffel. Cons with an army duffel are the following. Size can also, the thing is with let me clarify myself. The thing with an army duffel is the size, and a lot of the other aspects of an army duffel are both pros and cons, depending on how you look at it. So the con with the size is it's a bit weirdly bulk. Like the way the weight is set up in the thing doesn't really work. So if you're carrying say 50, it becomes heavy. But the thing is, if it was tighter altogether, it'd be easier to control 50 with a proper strap. But what happens is, you will have a lot of your weight that will get shifted to one portion of the duffel. It slides around. There's weird room all over the place. And you essentially now have a weird lopsided 50 pounds. Versus a tighter duffel, like I said before, you're not going to have that issue. So if you buy a smaller army duffel, you may not have the same problems with that. But this is with a 50-inch long army duffel, and this thing's like 20, 30 inches tall. So this thing is massive. And normally don't need this much stuff. And that reminds me of another pro. This is great if your strategy for packing is, oh shit, I need a pack, and I need a pack now, and I just need to throw a bunch of stuff in a check-in bag and go. This thing, you don't need to think about it twice. You could just throw it all in there, hope for the best, and it usually works because there's just so much room. And on top of that, basically, so some other cons with this thing, they don't come with a shoulder strap. My advice, grab a shoulder strap or just something has clips like this, like almost like a carabiner clip if you're not looking at it right now, and basically just clip it. And this army duffel in particular has like metal rings, and I want you to imagine like a half circle metal ring if you're only listening to this. So basically you can just clip it right to there, and I haven't had a problem with it. And then you could basically do it to both sides. Now you have a full-on shoulder strap. And what I found is the best way of carrying this thing is have the shoulder strap, but also there's usually a handle on the outside, not on opposite ends, but on one of the sides of the army duffel. If you can grab that as well as having it over your shoulder, that's one of the better ways of holding it, assuming your weight is relatively even, but that goes back to the con. Some other things with army duffel. Oh, its flexibility is also its downfall. If you have delicate items, be prepared to sacrifice them. Because what will happen is, unlike a hard suitcase where it can properly protect your items, if you're not careful with an army duffel, what will happen is they'll throw it around everywhere, and now you'll basically have a flexible bag that is protecting, in air quotes, basically, whatever item you have. So, like, for example, when I went from California to Texas, I brought this bag as one of my check-in bags when I moved in, and I quickly just threw in a couple of rods. My ultralight rod the tip did not make it through. It did not survive, unfortunately. It was a good rod. It looked like it was a fun rod to use. It was a good rod. Yeah, so just have that in mind. Anything that you want to be protected, have a hard case inside the army duffel, like the rod tube I described earlier. If you can have if you have a PVC pipe like that or some hard tubing, that is great. That will get rid of that con. So, like I said, follow the theme. So most of these cons, if you know what you're looking for, you can easily replace with. You can easily just replace with and they become a pro if you do it right. Is what I'm trying to say. And then to go with that, other con. It's not really a big important con, but it just looks really suspicious. Like, drag this thing along, and it looks like you have a small dead body in there. And then you make the joke that it's too light. So that's actually happened. And yeah, that's a thing. Because nothing looks more suspicious than dragging a 50-inch long duffel. So, when you have that in mind, avoid making it look like an actual... You will get some stairs. Just that is the way of putting it. You will have the biggest duffel. You have the biggest check-in item in the room, whether you're talking about the airport, a bus station, wherever. You will have the biggest bag in the room, and there's a chance you will get stairs at it. So that is pros and cons. Let's see if I'm thinking of missing anything else. Excuse me for a second. That's actually not a bad pro. It doesn't weigh very much. This is good if you have to be within that 20-pound or the 50-pound, the 50-pound minimum that a lot of airports require. So what will happen is it's very workable around their requirements, because normally they'll have like certain size restrictions, but since it's a soft duffel, it can just cave in on itself. So the actual like dimensions I've never had a problem with, but weight is obviously still a thing, but it's not that heavy on its own, so you don't need to worry about putting in that much weight. Yeah, so this is not a bad idea if you want to bring large amounts of stuff on your trip. If you are the overkill packer, forget about a big suitcase, forget about 500 suitcases. For $40, this is the way to go, and you get a good arm workout in the process. Or you should have a good arm workout beforehand. Thank you for watching. If you like or listening, depending on if you're treating this as an actual podcast. If you like this style of stuff, please leave a like, subscribe to this, and give me a comment. Actually, let me pull a fun little question. Have you ever used an army duffel? And if so, what for? And on top of that, how big was your army duffel? All right. Take care, guys.